First thing I want to talk about is marijuana legalization. We've got some good news on that front. The Biden administration has fulfilled one of their campaign promises and said that they have reviewed the scheduling of marijuana, and the Department of Health and Human Services, has recommended that it be rescheduled from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 3 drug. So, what does this mean exactly? Well, Schedule 1 drugs are the worst of the worst drugs. They are the drugs that have been determined to have no medical value and to be potentially highly addictive and can be abused. Things like heroin, cocaine, LSD is in there, although I wouldn't put LSD in there myself, but LSD is dangerous. Stuff like that. The drugs that, crack, that kind of thing. The drugs that will mess you up and that basically have no medical use. And these are the ones that have the highest classification of a controlled substance. And they're recommending that marijuana be rescheduled as a Schedule 3 drug, which is the lowest level of control. Other Schedule 3 drugs include things like anabolic steroids or painkillers with small amounts of codeine in them, stuff like that. So, what does this actually mean? Because this is kind of a major step towards drug legalization, right? For years and years and years, in the movement to legalize marijuana, they couldn't really get anywhere because it was a Schedule 1 drug. So every time somebody would try to do a study, basically saying, oh, it's got medical benefits, stuff like that, and they were never able to actually do that because of it being scheduled as a Schedule 1 drug. Whenever they would try to decriminalize it around the country, stuff like that, this was always standing in the way. And even those states which have legalized it, it's only legal at a state level. So the federal government could at any given time crack down, which is kind of ridiculous, but it's true. And we've seen examples of that around the country. Even in states where it's legal, sometimes the feds will get uppity about it. Not so much during the Biden years, but that would happen a lot during the Trump years when this movement was just starting. It has gotten a lot better. I mean, currently, weed is legal in 36 states. 18 of those states have legalized it for recreational purposes. But that doesn't mean that it's fully 100% legal. One of the big problems with this is that businesses that distribute marijuana, whether for medical reasons or for recreational reasons, because it's still illegal at the federal level, they can't do things like use the banking system, for example. They can't do things like take things off of their taxes that normal other businesses could. So that's been kind of a big problem. And what ends up happening is that, first off, it's more expensive to run a dispensary or a legal weed shop than a normal business. That's the first thing. Second thing is that since they can't use the banks, then they have to deal in cash, which leaves them open to be victimized, right, by thieves because they have large amounts of cash on hand. So gangs and stuff show up and rip them off all the time. So that's a bad thing. None of the credit card companies will work with them either, so everything's in cash. Right, because they could get in trouble at a federal level for dealing, with an illegal substance, even though it's legal in that state. It doesn't matter. So if Visa or American Express or something like that does business with a dispensary, they could be on the hook for criminal penalties somewhere down the line, right? And you can't blame them because they have to follow the law. So what ends up happening is that because of these restrictions, it being illegal at a federal level puts on these businesses, it ends up costing them way more. And they end up passing this cost on to the consumer. And that's why marijuana is more expensive than it should be coming from these legal places. That's the first thing. And that's not right. It's like, is it legal or is it not legal? We should make up our mind, right? That's the first thing. It shouldn't be illegal in some states and then not legal in other states. At least I believe so. I always think that's kind of dumb. But the second thing, it shouldn't be illegal and legal and illegal at the same time. Okay, well, the FBI might arrest you, but the normal police department won't. That's kind of ridiculous. The third thing is that this leaves them open to be victimized, not just by gangs and criminals, but by the police sometimes. The actual police will take advantage of this and steal their money. And I would like to show you this Los Angeles Times article I have here. FBI and San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department accused of illegally seizing marijuana cash. So this is from last year, but this isn't the only article I've seen for this. But let's just read a little bit of this. I just want to show that, to make you aware of this, those of you out there who care about this issue. If you care about legal marijuana, this is something that you should be aware of. The driver of an armored car carrying $712,000 in cash from a licensed marijuana dispensary was heading into Barstow on a Mojave Desert freeway in November when San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies pulled him over. They interrogated him, seized the money, and turned it over to the FBI. This is from last January 2022. A few weeks later, deputies stopped the same driver in Rancho Cucamonga, took an additional $350,000 belonging to legal pot stores, gave that cash to the FBI too. Now the FBI is trying to confiscate nearly $1.1 million bounty, which it might share with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. The FBI says the money is tied to federal drug or money laundering crimes, but it specified no unlawful content and charged no one with the crime. Kinda messed up here. The cash seizures and another from the same trucking company in Kansas raised questions about whether the Justice Department under President Biden is moving to disrupt the operations of licensed marijuana businesses in California and other states where pot is legal. The case has also rekindled allegations that federal law enforcement agencies in Southern California have been abusing forfeiture laws by seizing cash and valuables from people when the government has no evidence they committed crimes. Don't really need to read the rest of this, folks. But long story short, what's going on is that the police departments in California and also in other states too, I read another article where this was happening in Colorado. What's going on is that since all of these businesses have to use cash, they're basically just raiding the armored trucks, confiscating all the cash, and then using forfeiture laws in order to just basically steal it. See, there's laws in every state that are basically designed to target drug dealers. And what they do basically say that any money that is obtained through an illegal endeavor can be confiscated. And what this was for back in the 80s and 90s. They were targeting drug dealers because what was happening is that they would arrest the drug dealers. They would give them, they'd say, okay, you have $100,000 bail, whatever. And these guys would be all super rich and they'd get out and then they would just flee the state or flee the country or something like that. And so in order to stop that, they wrote these sort of forfeiture laws, civil forfeiture laws, saying that they could just confiscate it. Well, the problem is that, and this is a big problem all around the country, not just in California, but the problem is that now whenever the cops encounter a large amount of cash, they just steal it. And then they say that, well, this obviously came from drug dealing or something like that. So you get story after story after story of somebody who has a large amount of cash that they saved up for a long time, for whatever reason, and then they would get pulled over, the cop finds it, just takes their money, and then they never get it back. Or if they do get it back, they have to go through this long-ass legal process where they have to sue and all this stuff, and then they'll get back a portion of it. They'll be awarded, it'll be like $10,000, and they'll be awarded $4,000 of their $10,000 thing, right? And that's bullshit too. They'll just be like, okay, well here, you can have half of it. right? What kind of shit is that? And the actual court case will be worded as $10,000 versus the state of Colorado or something like that. And it's on, and basically what it is that it's put upon you to prove that the money wasn't generated from an illegal endeavor, that it's not drug money, that you didn't get it through human trafficking or some shit like that. And that's the opposite of how it's supposed to be. See, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty in American courtroom, right? Whenever you get arrested, whenever the law basically comes in and has anything to do with you whatsoever, where you're accused of anything, you're supposed to have the presumption of innocence. And it's like that in every other case except in when it comes to civil asset forfeiture. When it comes to civil asset forfeiture, it's the other way around. And it's bullshit. Like, how do you prove that you made this money without selling drugs? How do you do it? Especially if it's something like, say, it's something that you have been saving for a long, long time, right? Some people don't trust banks. They just don't. Some people have really crappy credit, and so they don't use banks. So they just get their money in cash, like let's say you're a waiter or something like that, and you just save up all your tips. And then you go to, say you're going to the bank and you're going to go deposit your tips or whatever, and then you get pulled over and the cop just fucking takes them. That's it. Or here's another thing. Let's say you own a hot dog stand. All right, this happens all the time too. You own a hot dog stand, cop shows up, and you just don't happen to have your permit on you. You left it at home. Cop steals all the money you made that day, and then you're just out $2,000 or something like that. And if you want to get it back, it's a major giant hassle. And they make it super hard on purpose because they know that people aren't going to go through the trouble to do it. It's bullshit. It's like legal thievery is what it is. And there's like a big movement in all around the country to put an end to this shit. Because it's like cops should not, the state should not be allowed to just confiscate your property and then put the onus on you to prove that it's not illegal. That's bullshit. It should be the other way around. And I'm hoping that this goes before the Supreme Court one of these days, because that's like a travesty of fucking justice right there, right? But getting back to the subject at hand, a lot of dispensaries, legal in states where marijuana is legal, are putting up with this now. When it comes to the police are just coming, stealing all their money, and if it's not the police, then it's like gangs or it's thieves or something, and you can't run a business like that, right? You got to have that security that comes with working with credit card companies, that comes with working with banks. Why are they not allowed to do that? It's like because it's illegal at a federal level. So this will be major. If it gets rescheduled to a Schedule 3 drug, that means all that goes away. That means that they are basically can just be run like a normal business. And then they can be subject to the same kind of market pressures as any business, and then the price will go down. Conceivably. That's doesn't always work that way, but conceivably it should. And here's the thing, it's like you should be allowed to buy it. You should be allowed to buy it, in my opinion. This will make it that much easier to buy it, to legalize it in every state. It's still illegal in several states around this country. Let me turn on, I got here a map. This is from, let's turn on my thing. This is from the Britannica, procon.org, legal and medical recreational marijuana states. So you see the light green are the ones with medical marijuana, and the dark green are the states with legal, medical, and recreational marijuana. Something I would like to point out to you guys is that the states where it is still illegal completely, you'll notice, are all red states. With the possible exception of Wisconsin sometimes. But Wisconsin politics are really fucked up anyway. That's probably the reason why. But you'll notice that it's the coasts, it's the blue states where it's 100% fully legal. And it's starting to encroach down in these red states here, starting to kind of spread in the deep south there. And it's only a matter of time before all of these states start legalizing it too. And if they can reschedule this to a Schedule 3, it'll make it that much easier. Because if it's not, Schedule 3 basically means it's not really that illegal. It's still controlled, but it's not a thing that you go to jail for unless you get caught dealing it or some shit like that. Like, you can still go to jail for selling steroids and that kind of thing illegally, but it's not the same as being a heroin dealer, right? It's not that, it's just, you can go into a store and you can buy painkillers with codeine in them, for example, right? Imagine just getting over-the-counter marijuana, not having to go to like a head shop or some shit, just going to like your local gas station or liquor store, like buying a pack of cigarettes, except it's like they're joints. Imagine that. That's what it should be like. It should be like that. I mean, why the fuck not? What's wrong with that? So this is kind of what's going to help that happen. So this is kind of major news. This is a thing that legal weed advocates have been trying to do for years and years and years and years. Let's go ahead and turn this off for now. And here's the last little bit that I want to comment on this, is that you'll notice, folks, that marijuana legalization is not anything that any one given politician made happen. We didn't just elect somebody and then it became legal in 36 states. That's not what happened. This was a movement from the ground up, right? No president ever has been pro-legalization. Not Clinton, not Obama, right? Not Biden, right? Especially not any Republican president. None of them have been pro-legalization, right? Even the ones that admitted smoking it. You know, Obama admitted, I inhaled and all that shit. He was still anti-legalization. No senators. I mean, a very small number of senators. I think the Squad is, and then like Bernie Sanders and AOC and those people, I think they're like pro-legalization, but they're like a small minority, right? They didn't make this happen. This is a movement that has been going for years and years. And how did it happen? How did we legalize marijuana in 36 states and 18 states recreationally in this country? How did we do it? We did it from the ground up. We did it by voting. And that's proof that when people get out there and get motivated and have something to actually shoot for, they can make shit happen. And the politicians can't stand in their way, right? It's absolute proof. So if you want something to happen in this country, you can make it happen. You have to get out there and work for it. And this is a perfect example of a grassroots thing. And now it's legal in more than half of the states in this country. That's what it took. It went from state to state to state. It started in Colorado, and then it went to Hawaii, and then it went to California, and then it went to a bunch of other states, right? One state at a time. And now they're talking about finally moving to legalize it at a federal level after all this time. So if you want something, like a progressive policy, something like Medicare for all, for example, something like a UBI, something like prison reform, if you want these things, they're possible. This is what the lesson that we should be taking away from this is. It's 100% possible. You got to get out there. You got to work for it. And you don't get it by standing around holding a sign. You don't get it by gluing your hands to the ground and obstructing traffic. That doesn't get it for you. You don't get it by throwing fucking tomato sauce on the Mona Lisa. I don't know whose fucking bright idea that shit was. You don't get it by doing any of that fucking shit. Okay? You get it by organizing and voting. Running the people that you want, that are going to get you what you want, right? And withholding your vote when they don't, right? And that's how you do it. And shit will change. So, just want to emphasize that for everybody, that it's not hopeless. It looks, sometimes it's very hopeless when we're out here and you think, no, nothing's ever going to change. Oh, it's just, everything's shitty. one thing after another, exploitation, blah blah blah, people getting shot by cops, etc. It's never going to change, whatever. And no, not true at all. But it takes work. It takes work, and it takes time and work. And it's like, this is your future, right? What kind of country do you want to live in? You got to make that decision, and you got to get out there, and you got to vote, and you have to organize, and you have to register people to vote. Shit like that. You got to be politically active. You got to be aware. You have to talk to your friends, spread awareness, right? Donate your time and your money. Support the people that are going to give you what you want, and work against the people who will not. And if you do that, things will happen.
Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.